Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
When we're our best selves, not only do we feel loving towards ourselves, but that loving energy floats ahead of us. When we invoke this help every day, it changes our persona. It changes who we are in a way that we become the pure being we were when we were kids. So the easy definition of 5D is it's heaven on earth. When we focus on what we're grateful for, in what's working, it changes our own matrix. It sets the tone for the day. There's a lot of help available to us with the angels, with our guides. There are beings of light that have come on the scene. So the way you call them is you simply say, I'm asking for the dragons. You can even say, I'm not even sure I believe in you, but if you guys are real, if there are real dragons to help me, bring it on. And I claim a day of heaven on earth, which is another 5D thing, that you only need a homeopathic dose of darkness. And so when we need a miracle, we get a miracle. When we need a miracle, we get a miracle. So nice to have brothers who work together.
Yeah, it's been a journey, but we're definitely in a good place now, and definitely enjoy working with each other more than ever now that we're not living together.
I understand. I totally understand. Do you live in the same city?
Not anymore. No, I'm in South Carolina, and Jimmy's in Denver, Colorado.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 4 sons,
Okay.
and they have loved to play together. And every once in a while there's a big blow up, and it always scares me, as a mom. So you guys are cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting. Oh my gosh, we did half an hour.
Well, like I said, now that we don't live together too, we also use these times as we usually either meet for an hour before, an hour after, to catch up and see how our weeks have been going, because we were together for a while, and it's just been as of recent in the last 4 months or so that we've separated and gone off on our own a little bit here. So we like to catch up. So it's no big deal.
Are you twins?
No, I'm 11 years older.
Ah. My older brother's named Richard also.
Guy? Or does he ever go by Dick?
He does. That was an old nickname that was okay.
Yeah.
Nowadays, not so easy to say, but.
Yeah. That's funny you say that, because now I'm 46 now, and I said I think it's time at my age where I can start transitioning and actually use that as my name. And it's kind of like, we had that principal or that teacher or professor in college where it was like, I wonder at what point in their life did they switch over from Rich or Richard to Dick. So I think I'm there now. But more as a goof than anything.
That's cute. That's really cute.
So, Maureen, I must say your work has been really helping me lately. And I kind of found your work through Dolores Canyon's work, learning about the 3 waves of volunteers, and then wanting to tap into that stuff on my own. I found your book, Waking Up in 5D, you have so many tools in that book to kind of help elevate us to that next level. And we started off this conversation today. You said you had gotten in an argument. So my question for you is, how do you stay in 5D when you have those tough situations?
Well, first of all, you don't, you struggle, when you find yourself in that kind of a situation and someone is mad because of what you have said or done that they think was out of line, and it may have been, first thing you can do is say, you know what, I see your point. I'm going to take your comments under advisement. I would like it if you would help me notice the next time I do it so I can quit that behavior, because if it's going to be problematic for our interactions, then I want to quit it. And I also don't want to do it to anybody else, you know? And that generally diffuses a lot of frustration on both people's sides. There are situations where people can't change. And then that's when you make a decision to pull the plug on either the closeness like you guys have had, or something else. You know, like I have friends who've told me that they're really good friends with their former partners. And, you know, they said something similar to what you've said, you know, now that we're not living together, we get along great. So sometimes we push each other's buttons and we don't need to. So the way we say in 5D is we listen and we move into a place of unconditional love no matter what.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, like I said, even having an argument is not my MO, but this particular friend is a new friend in my world, and I'm not accustomed to that level of frankness. So maybe I've been spoiled, or maybe I was out of line and needed to be called out. All those things are possible. You know, when I worked as a CEO for a big agency, I instituted a thing called reverse evaluations. And then the staff was allowed to evaluate me. But they didn't do it individually because that would be tough. You know, you might get fired, I suppose. So instead, we worked through an intermediary, and then that person collected all the complaints. And, you know, you take it in and you see, what can I do to change? How can I be a better leader? So certainly being in a leadership role does have a big demand on your ability to stay heart-centered and yet firm. One of the ways that I choose to stay in 5D is to ask every day, I want to wake up in 5D. And I claim a day of heaven on earth, which is another 5D thing. So those are a couple of the ways that we get there. And it's funny because one of the things that I learned along the way is that I'm sorry is no longer necessary. And that's really scary for a lot of people, because while a lot of people want to hear I'm sorry, it makes the situation unequal, because it means that no, unless you're a really evil person, you're never going to do anything hurtful on purpose. It's always going to be inadvertent or inattentive or without thinking ahead. It's not, you know, like, I want to hurt this person. I want to make this person angry. So if that's true, then every harm that any of us cause to another is the result of ignorance. And the only way we can fix ignorance is to have someone speak the truth to us. So with that in mind, when someone speaks the truth, we have to make it safe for them to speak the truth. And that isn't always easy, because the first thing you want to do is go defend your behavior if you're the person in the leadership role. So listening makes it safe for the other person to be heard. the complainer, the person who's calling you out. And when we choose to listen, we are then taking responsibility for our behavior. So when we take responsibility for our behavior, it isn't anymore about, I'm sorry, I stuck my foot out in the aisle and you're trying to go to the bathroom in an airplane and you tripped. It's more about, are you okay? And so one of the ways to get that message across is to be heard. Are you okay? Because a lot of times when people are angry or hurt or wounded by something you or I have done, our saying, are you okay? Are you going to be okay? Lets them validate their wound. No, I'm not okay. You stepped on my foot. You know, it hurts. I'm going to try and be more careful next time. I'm going to pay attention. And again, you can help me by calling my attention to it before it gets out of line. There's a lot of help available to us with the angels, with our guides. There are beings of light that have come on the scene. One group of beings is called the serendipities, and they help us open our hearts, and they bring us great capacity to heal our wounds. Then there's another group of beings that have shown up, and I want to say more about the serendipities and before I do say the other group, and that is they also handle paperwork. So whenever you have a big project that involves, I'll call it government paperwork, you know, it's just, whether it's a college application or a job application or, you know, lots of things that are, you know, just a lot of paperwork. Even like nurses have lots of paperwork. 50% of their time is in paperwork instead of nursing. You know, I went into nursing to help people and I'm spending all my time at the desk writing paperwork. So there's lots and lots of paperwork, and the serendipities are really good at that, and they help us move through it quickly. So that's a resource when you're in that kind of situation. And then the next group of beings that have come on the scene are a group of beings called the golden sheets. And they're like bed sheets, and they work around the body, and they kind of fit you like a glove. And one of the things they said is that they're like wind shears. And I don't know if you remember reading this. I think it was in the book, but I'm not sure. I went to Wikipedia to look up wind shears because I didn't know much about them. And one of the things I found out was that wind shears are so powerful that it, you know, it can just slice through a tornado and dispel it. And then they went to the World of Warcraft. And in that game, that online game, wind shear makes you less of a threat to your enemies. So, you know, people who have a lot of light and a lot of goodness in them can attract people who are looking for trouble, because then they can, you know, get them to be angry and milk it. So when you have the golden sheets around you, they don't notice all your light. And the people who do need your light, you know, people who are struggling or people who are your friends or whatever, those people can feel the light around you or sense it. But the people who would be cross with you or, you know, start a fight with you, they don't notice you. I lived in New York City for a number of years, and I did a lot of shipping from my apartment at one point. And I would go to the post office, and I was always very, very kind, and it was a lovely group of people. I felt like a small neighborhood post office, because it was. And I would bring them cookies from Costco, make sure they were completely sealed so that it didn't look like I was sending them something funny. And one day I had to deal with somebody who was kind of like a supervisor. And she was very mean to me and very cross. And I came out of the post office and I thought to myself, wonder where that came from. You know, out of the blue. I have such a good relationship with everybody who works here. And my guides came in and said, everyone at the post office would love it if you would clear her, which made me burst out laughing. And that was that I was the trigger. So, you know, I remotely cleared the dark energy off of this person. And are you allowed to do these things? And the answer is yes, because all those dark energies that are hanging on people are not allowed to be here. And the reason they're not allowed to be here is because that gig is up and we're in the final stretch, or the final inning of the World Series. And we all are being given extra help, extra boosts, and all the dark energies have been run out of town. But if they don't get caught, they can't be run out of town because they're in a free will zone. So the analogy I like to use is when you are on the highway, when you or I break the speed limit, nothing happens. But if we get pulled over, we might get a ticket. If we were in zero tolerance, we would lose our license and our car. And we're in zero tolerance for entities and energies that are not of the light. So the good news is those guys are not out. The good news is you and I have the right to call them out and take them out. And I don't do it by myself. I call on the angels and the beings of light to help. So sometimes there's just dark energy that's causing that fight. And, you know, I've had an occasion where this has happened to some of my students and it's happened to me, where they're with someone and they can feel the crabbiness starting to come in and, you know, get into them. And they just back up and say, we need to clear, we need to change the subject, or we need to get some fresh air. And they shift the energy just like you would shift if a child was screaming, I want that toy.
So Maureen, you bring up summoning some entities and some energies, and I've been summoning my dragons. I got some dragons because of you, and they help me get to places when I'm late. They keep the traffic lights clear. Been listening to your Crystal Elohim channeling CD. Some other entities you've talked about in your in some of your other books. I believe in your Macabre book. I forget the name of the alien ones. I think it starts with an E. But yeah, so my point being with all that is there certain, you brought up the golden sheets and the serendipities. What are some, practical ways people can use these energies in their life? And I know to some of our listeners listening to this might be a little bit, what are they talking about, summoning different energies and stuff like that, but kind of just guide us into that. And, I know you told us what the golden sheets do and the serendipities, but kind of let people know what the dragons do, the Elohim and other energies out there, or entities that they can tap into, along with, some people might not even use their guides or call upon their angels. So stuff like that, and how important that is for staying in 5D and our aids.
I'm really glad you brought up the traffic thing with dragons. There was a gal that hosted me, and her husband was a friendly drag along. It wasn't really his thing, but he wasn't really opposing it. And he heard us talking about the dragons, and he had this horrible New England commute on these windy roads, where people pull out in front of craziness. And one day he thought, Maureen's always talking about the dragons helping in traffic. I'm going to call them in and see what happens. And he came home and he said, that was the best commute I've ever had. People actually waited to let me pull in. Nobody cut in front of me. It was amazing. And so the way you call them is you simply say, I'm asking for the dragons. You can even say, I'm not even sure I believe in you, but if you guys are real, if there are real dragons to help me, bring it on. And that would be sufficient. And it'll happen enough times that you'll go, okay, I get it. It's real. The dragons are also very good with clarity. So if you're having trouble figuring things out, or you need help with a publishing project, or anything to do with books or getting the word out, like in your show, you can call upon the dragons to help spread the word and help the people that need what you have to offer to bring it forward. Angels are far more common to people. And just to back up one more thing about the dragons, I wasn't into dragons at all. When my kids were younger, one of them was crazy about dragons and had a few, like icons, but I never thought anything about it. However, they started coming into my reality. I started being aware of them. And then I started asking them about what they do and what they're for. And that's when, all that stuff took off. And then, now there's other people who are writing about dragons. I'm not the only one out there, and you can find information about that. And, there may be something to it. The people in Asia, China, Japan, never really made dragons demons. They were always worshipped or honored, I should say, not necessarily worshipped, but honored. So, I've spent a lot of time in Asia. Maybe I've had enough lifetimes that when the dragons wanted to reappear in the West, they made themselves known to me. So going to angels are pretty well known throughout history. Lots and lots of stories exist in traditional lore about angels. There was there's angels who appeared to George Washington, giving him directions. There were also other presidents who've been visited by angels, stories along that line. And so many times people get a visit from an angel that gives them some kind of advance warning or some kind of understanding. And what I understand from the lore that's out there and from my own guides is that angels are part of the miracle workers of this reality. And they're part of creation to help us remember how much we are loved. And so when we need a miracle, we get a miracle. When we need a miracle, we get a miracle. So the angels can really bring in great joy and solutions that you just don't know how they're going to be able to pull it off. And one thing you can do is when you're in trouble of any kind, is just to scream, I need a miracle. I need a miracle. I need a miracle now, like that. You would say it a little more fiercely. A friend of mine texted me and said, I'm in a hospital in Mexico, and the doctor who would be able to take care of me, it won't be back till Monday. It's Saturday night. I have a piece of meat stuck in my throat, won't go up, won't go down, and I'm choking. And, I'm struggling. And I said to him, you need to make this call. And I wrote it out, told him to do it in his thought. And the next text I got was, I'm on my way home. It's dislodged, I'm fine. And he'd been in the ER for, a couple hours before he texted me and said, I need help. And this is something else, not to rely on others, but to be willing to ask. It's possible to try to be so self-sufficient that you end up being independently alone without help. And that's not the sign of our times. The sign of the times is to get help from each other, working in teams like you guys do, working with a good group of people. So the angelic realm is pretty well known. There's lots of books out on angels. Another group, the Elohim, are at source code for creation. So when you call in the crystalline Elohim, you're actually imbuing your own DNA with the crystalline energy of source code, which literally helps you reformat everything in you. And there's a couple of interesting things about that Elohim CD. I don't know if you've ever used it when you can't sleep, but a number of people have reported that when they can't sleep and they put it on, they go right to sleep. My personal experience is that when I call upon the crystalline Elohim, they help me belong when I can't seem to fit in, or when I have shame about whatever. And so the getting to know of these beings is very valuable. And I'll tell you a story about a man who I was friends with, a very spiritual guy, and he owned an insurance business. His wife was the office manager, and one day she asked for a divorce, and it was right when his business was having a big downturn. So as he said, I had the worst week in my life. My wife asked for a divorce. My business was tanking, and I'm in this men's group, and I'm the last one to arrive on Saturday morning when we're going to take a hike up this big hill. And I said the word Elohim under my breath with every out breath. And he said I was the first one at the top of the hill, even though I arrived late. So there's something about the Elohim and calling them in that gives us our original blueprint. And that original blueprint is unstoppable. We've been programmed a little bit to think that we are stoppable. We've been programmed to believe that the hurts we've encountered are permanent, but we can heal. When we get a cut on our finger, we don't lament that we're going to be cut forever. But when we take an emotional hit, a lot of times we hang on to it as if it never would heal, and it will. We can heal our wounds. So, and there are many, many ways to do that. And this is why I have so many guided meditation CDs. A lot of them were created for me. And then I would be told, you need to put this out for the public. I had a friend who was suffering because her business was in terrible, terrible shape. She had a company that made blends for spas. Essential oil, flower essences, things like that. She calls me one day and she says, this spa owes me 5K, this spa owes me 10K, this spa owes me 3K. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't make my house payment. And I said to her, well, I got this guidance to dance in the river of golden opportunity. Would you like me to, walk you through it? And she said, yeah. And she called me the next day. She said, you're not going to believe this, but I actually got a call from one of them saying, come on over, we can get you a check. And then 2 weeks later, she calls me, same drama. We do the same meditation. She calls me within hours, said, you're not going to believe this, but it's fixed. At that point, I asked my guides, am I supposed to release this for other people to use? And the meditation is called Dancing in the River of Golden Opportunity. And it brings in all this lovely energy to help us to be our best self. And when we're our best selves, not only do we feel loving towards ourselves, but that loving energy floats ahead of us and behind us. And it's like walking around with gold fairy dust. So everybody we talk to thinks we're wonderful. Everything we say, they think we're wonderful. And that makes the person we're interacting with feel important. So the opportunity to invoke help is huge. And we miss out when we don't call it in. We miss out when we don't say, I'm having a problem here. I need some big time help. I need some big time help. I need to help heal this situation or this relationship or this occurrence. And then the other side of it is when we invoke this help every day, it changes our persona. It changes who we are in a way that we become the pure being we were when we were kids. All of us have had wounds. All of us have had money stolen from us. All of us have had business partners that went bad, And sometimes you think you're the only one in the world like this. But I remember reading in Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, how some of his business partners, did him wrong. And I'm thinking, oh my God, didn't just happen to me. It happens to lots of people. So what that does is it helps us unhook. It's not personal. It's just how it is. I also recommend, if you're really down and you've been down for a while, go watch sunsets, because watching a sunset is a huge experience. It's very beautiful. And subconsciously, there'll be another one tomorrow. And when I went through a difficult situation in my life, I asked my angels, what can I do? What can I do? And they said, you need to go watch sunsets. And so I did. And later, years later, I read a study that said watching a sunset every night actually will lift you out of a depression, because subconsciously your body knows there'll be another one tomorrow. So that's an easy thing to do. I will tell you that when I was in that really dark spot many, many years ago, I said, I'm in a really bad spot. Don't make me do anything. Just get me out of here. And, that's what I was told to do. When I was in college and my parents wanted to break up a relationship that they didn't approve of. And I accepted their decision at that time. I was still really in the dumps over that. And I asked, what should I do? And my angel said, 2 first. And they explained to me that every time I had a dark thought, I should think 2 positives in the same vein. So as a college student, I don't know if you guys encountered this, but at my dorm, everybody complained about the food. So because I'd given myself this agreement, okay, I'll do that. I'll just do the two. Every time I have a dark thought, I'm going to follow it with 2 positives. So then I'd say, well, the donuts are fantastic and we can have as many as we want. So pretty soon I got tapped by the head of admissions, who said, I've heard about you. I want you to take prospective students on tour around here. So what I know is there is research on that as well, that says that positive thoughts can outweigh your dark thoughts and change who you are emotionally. Now, there is some discussion about the Losada ratio, which says you have to have at least 3. And that was a study that was kind of done in a moderately esoteric way, and they claimed it was scientific. But a bunch of mathematicians came in after them and said, no, there is nothing scientific about this. So I can tell you only need 2. And you don't say, I hate my job, but I love my husband and I love my baby daughter. It has to be, if I hate my boss, but I love the working conditions and the pay is great. And I'm going to keep thinking the positives. It is tough when things are rough and you're having a tough time. But what I also know is when we focus on what we're grateful for, in what's working, it changes our own matrix. It sets the tone for the day. And one of the things that I do with some friends is I list 5 things that I'm grateful for. And my grateful part is the people, or mostly people, that I'm grateful for. My staff members, my family members, friends, like that. And so on a simple piece of paper like this, I put one side, I put my to-do list, and then in the other side, I put people that I'm grateful for. And my in-house rule is that if I've got 5 things on the list, I have to have 5 people I'm grateful for. if I've got 10 things on the list, I better have 10 things to be grateful for. And what that does is it makes my day smoother. And it tells the universe, I'm in a good place. I'm grateful. Bring it on. Bring on more stuff that I can be grateful for. And that's pretty interesting, but it does work. So the choice to move out of unhappiness and discomfort can be made in a very slow and easy way. So when you're in a dark place, ask for help. When you're in a dark place, be not afraid to ask for otherworldly help. The angels, the guides, these other beings that have come in, the serendipities, the golden sheaths, like that, the dragons. And to be willing to do a little thing to help yourself, not a big thing, but a little thing. And that might be making an agreement with yourself for the next 3 days. I'm going to go watch the sunset, find a place somewhere near me that I can go and watch the sunset, or use that 2 first rule and put two for one. I remember when I lived in Manhattan, and I lived in Upper Manhattan across from this beautiful park called Fort Tryon Park. And I had to walk up a stairs and take an elevator and, kind of get over into the park. And it maybe took me about 10 minutes to get there, but I would watch the clock and stop working just to watch the sunset from this beautiful park. And it was such a thing that there would be 50 people that would gather just to watch the sunset. And it was so cool. People were friendly and charming and sweet. And how could you not be happy looking at a beautiful sunset on the Hudson River and being in a beautiful park with amazing flowers and lovely people? So we can seek these things out, and it doesn't take a huge amount of effort, but it takes a little bit of effort of caring for ourselves. And when you're in a really dark place, you don't want to do anything, you can ask, all right, I really don't want to do anything, but I need help doing a little something. Give me that nudge, help me get to that spot, and I'll do it. So, yeah. And the other thing is, it's communication. We all struggle to communicate with love. And part of it is because we sometimes don't love ourselves. We think we're not good enough. And sometimes we think other people aren't good enough. And so we struggle to find that balance and to love ourselves so unconditionally that it's easy to love everyone else. When you feel really good about yourself and you feel really loved, like when you first fall in love, when people do stupid stuff, you don't mind. You're driving a car and somebody pulls in front of you in an awkward way. You don't even think about getting mad. Oh, they're probably in a hurry. When I first started really paying attention to what was keeping me in 3D and what was kind of helping me stay in 5D, I noticed that when I would be driving, if somebody pulled in front of me, I'd feel edgy about it. I'd be mad. That's my spot. I don't know anybody else who's like this, but that's how I was feeling. And one day I thought, you know what? That's one of the last places that you have kept yourself out of 5D by being judgmental by the way somebody else drives. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe something happened to them, making them a little nuts. So I made myself a promise that every time somebody did something I didn't like, that I would offer them a blessing and call on the angels to help them get where they needed to go and to keep them safe. And then to smile. I'm so grateful that I'm not that person.
Maureen, taking a step back, we'll kind of Tarantino this a little bit here. We've talked about a lot of amazing stuff, and one of the themes of our podcast is curiosity, and a lot of things Jimmy and I are in synchronicity with, and then other times we each bring things to one another to kind of hip each other to, and then that synchronicity happens. So for the people that are listening and are tuning in and are very interested in everything that we've talked about so far, or you've talked about, can we take a step back and can you maybe get a little bit into what 5D is and maybe how your origin story with this? Was there a particular incident or event that brought you to it, or maybe some other person like yourself bringing it to us and our guests that brought it to you?
So the easy definition of 5D is it's heaven on earth. It's what all the traditions have taught us is heaven. It's where we get to be with the people we love. We have happy interactions, and we find our way with joy. 5D is a place where there's no judgment. So there are places and there are days when we are without judgment. We meet someone, we really like them, and then maybe we discover that there's something about them that we normally would judge. And we go, well, I really like that person. I don't even feel it. I'm not feeling that judgment. And so it helps us step out of that judgment. That's being 5D. For myself, I've always had a connection. I've always had awareness that no one else had. And when I was younger, I didn't know that everybody else didn't have this. You know, when you're a kid, you don't know what you don't know. And it wasn't until I was much older that I recognized that I could know stuff or experience things that other people didn't. I also was very drawn to my Catholic upbringing, not to be like a strict Catholic, but to really love the saints and love the experiences of, you know, stepping into your true place of unconditional love of source. And so for me, it was a very, almost like the frog in hot water, you know, you just put me in the cold water and turn up the heat and I'm with you, you know, I'm there, I'm in that hot water. So a lot of things happened to me spontaneously, but a lot of things happened to me as part of my everyday normal. I can remember in my 20s being in a study group, and I asked my inner guide that was giving me instruction on the inner what his name was. And he told me. And I didn't tell anybody because it was a name I'd never heard. It wasn't like a David or John or anything like that. And then one day our meditation teacher said to my husband, he's having an experience. Tell us about your experience. No, I'm not. Yes, you are having an experience, and please tell us about what's happening. No, I'm not. This went on for a few times, and I finally thought to myself, enough already. We're supposed to be meditating, and you guys are arguing. And then my husband said, well, I'm with and named the name of this guide that I had never heard this name before, and I'm sure he had never either. And that was my little validation. That's when I first knew, oh, this is real. This stuff I'm experiencing is really, really real. So I began as a teenager studying Edgar Cayce. And Edgar Cayce was a doubter himself and was a devout Christian and did not believe in any of the stuff that was happening to him. And he fell into a ravine, and somebody tried to help him, but that man was not well himself. And while he's in the ravine and he's knocked out, he starts telling this stranger that's helping him what the stranger needs to do to get better. So word gets out, and a few things happen. And over the years, he came to believe in reincarnation, even though up until that time he didn't. And, he went through a phase where he lost his voice because he didn't want to do this work, didn't want to be spiritual. And then a guy came along and said, well, I've heard about you. I want to help. would you let me hypnotize you? And so he got hypnotized. And the hypnosis revealed that he needed to be doing this work, and his voice would come back. And also, here's the remedy. And he came out, he could talk clearly in the hypnosis. And then when he came out, he couldn't talk again, but then he did the remedies that were prescribed and he got better. And then, you know, it was up to him to decide whether he was going to pursue this spiritual tradition. And for those of you who've never heard of Edgar Cayce, he was known as the American mystic, and he was alive in the 40s and was really, really popular. And he has the center that he founded is in Virginia Beach, called Association for Research and Development. So I started reading that material when I was a teenager. So I was always looking for more knowledge and more opportunities to learn and grow. And, you know, even when I had a family, I was still serving in a way that would be helpful to humanity. You know, I was tapped to be the Sunday school teacher, and I agreed to do it, not because I wanted to, but because they asked me and I had a bunch of kids. So, you know, you kind of have to show up where they need you. So my path has always been learning something. And then in the last, I don't know, 25 or 30 years, I learned a process called the Merkaba. And that's a energetic field that you learn to create around your body. And it looks like this, okay? And it spins around your body. And this energy puts you in 5D. And then everything else that you do, everything else that you learn comes a little easier. And this field around you stays with you. And it kind of looks like a spaceship. And if you could see it, it's spinning pretty fast, but if you could see it, it would kind of look like this, you know, a little bubble at the top, and, you know, moves in a way that it flattens out as it spins, you know, like a rotor, and it flattens out and goes way out 55 feet around you. And that field then plugs you into the version of you that is already a master. And that would be another definition of 5D, is that you have mastery, and you can be in 5D and still encounter trouble, but the trouble is not insurmountable. Things happen, but they get handled. So this idea that we can be in a difficult situation and have solutions is amazing. Totally amazing. You know, when I ask for a day of heaven on earth, it practically ensures that the day, no matter what trouble comes my way, it gets better. And a lot of the things I learned by accident. You know, the short story behind A Day of Heaven on Earth is I said this as a way to fix my saying something I shouldn't have said. And I was getting off a plane and I came home to a flood in my basement, and I had to deal with a whole bunch of stuff and get on a plane later that day. When I'm sitting on the plane later that day, everything worked out. The plumber came when he said he would. I was able to pick a spot in the wall. He wanted to go upstairs bathroom. I said, no, downstairs bathroom, and here's the spot. Cost me $100. My neighbor came over, put fans in the wall to dry the walls out. I was able to make my bank deposit and my mailing. That tells you how long ago that was. And I'm sitting on the plane thinking, what the heck? How did I get such a fabulous outcome? You know, all those things could have, you know, ruined my trip, my next trip, whatever. And I was told by my guides, well, you asked for a day of heaven on earth. So I thought, whoa, next time I have a really busy chock-a-block day, I'm going to ask for that. The second time I asked, I thought, I'm not waiting till I have another chock-a-block day. I'm asking every day. We all can. That's pretty cool. Just to ask, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth. So it doesn't mean that the world around you isn't going to get wonky. It means that your ability to slide through it is cool. Like you're on a water slide. You know, there's ups and downs, you get wet. But, you know, you come out the other side and say, well, that was interesting. You're not mad. You're not angry. You're just going, whoa, that was cool. I never
Marie,
described it like a water slide before, but it feels like it fits.
just
I'm
to
in.
add, just to add to your point about not everything's going to be perfect around you, but you're going to be perfect on the inside. I had that realization one day. That is my new mantra. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for myself, everyone I'm in contact with, and everyone I'm in contract with. And for a while, I thought I was going to get all my wishes, everything. I was going to start manifesting all this crazy stuff. And then I started realizing I was having all these beautiful little interactions with people. And it was nothing out of this world, nothing crazy. It was just a good, positive interaction, whether it be someone at a store or someone I go to school with, or just a conversation. And I actually text Rich this. I text a friend, and it's like, oh, heaven on earth is all your interactions, or you're coming through with that heavenly energy. It's not, nothing's gonna be perfect, but you're gonna enjoy those little things.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I love hearing this. And I love hearing these stories. So that's one of the reasons why I was given the nickname the Practical Mystic, because I'm running up against walls myself, just like everybody else. And that I'm finding my way through it. And that's amazing. So I'm grateful for the opportunities that keep coming my way. I'm grateful for the nudges that I get to clean up my act when I'm out of line. And I'm grateful for the support that I get. One other group that I have worked with very closely over the years is the Hathors. And these are the beings that are from, we've seen them in the statue work in Egypt. And they sort of look like this. They're supposed to be like cow energy. And I've always seen them as feline or as cat. And it turns out there is a lineage of the Hathors that is feline, but they carry the highest version of unconditional love on the planet. And when they, when you call them in, they help you move through something with great grace and great ease. So what I think about all this is the discovery of the Hathors and how they can help you be in your heart is huge. So if you're angry about a lot of stuff, maybe you went through a rough divorce or a rough breakup with your business, or a tough, you quit your job, but it was a really rough environment before you left, and you're still angry, you're just still angry. Calling in the Hathors to help you resolve it is very, very powerful. And there is a chant that I recorded on Mantras for Ascension CD. And there's two chants on there. One is called the Hebrew chant. The other one's called the Hathor chant. And the Hathor chant is where you sing the names of earth, air, fire, and water in the language of the Hathors. And you just sing it, and you can sing it any way you want, but you repeat it a certain number of times, and magic happens. It clears the field, it clears the energy, clears everything. So that's another resource, just to say, I'm not even sure I believe in the Hathors. And that's what I tell people, don't take my word for it. Don't let my words convince you. Hear my words and try it and see what it does for you. And then you'll know for yourself. And then you can say, oh, well, she was right. Or, well, I didn't expect that to happen, but I think it was the energy of these beings that I've called in. And that's okay too. So what I do know is right now, life is still hard for people. We thought it was hard when we went through the lockdowns. But right now, people are in a place of uncertainty, and there's still, craziness in the world. And I recommend that whenever you're worried about someone else or something else, like a war situation, or your son or daughter that might be having difficulty at work or whatever, whenever you encounter this, to say a prayer, just say a little prayer. Help them. Dear God, help them. Find a way to help them. And look at some of the things that you don't like and decide to change. Not decide like to take it away, but choose to change. Just like I chose to change my reaction while driving. There are many times that we need to choose to accept something that we don't like and to learn and grow from it and make it a blessing instead of a bomb, instead of making it trouble for ourselves. Because after all, it's only what we resist that makes us unhappy.
Amen, Maureen. Maureen, thank you so much for your time. It was an honor to sit here with you today and pick your brain a little bit. Could go on and on. Reading or listening, I should say, to your Macabre book right now. Just got done with the Akashic Records book. So thank you for all your work. Just know you're having a huge impact on us, and hopefully this gets out to our audience and they start listening or reading your material too, because I really think you're doing God's work and you're changing the world. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. So Kim tells me that you wanted to do a reading, and on the air, I did it only once, and I was told, never to do it again. And like I told Kim, if you weren't pre-recording and you had a live audience, I would be happy to take one question from people. But I also told her to tell you guys, and I don't know if you've heard back from her yet, but I would be happy to give both of you readings if you wanted, either a short reading or regular, normally it's like 50 minutes. And then you can see for yourself. And then when you do your podcast, you can say, oh yeah, and we had a reading with Maureen, blah, blah, blah. And you can comment on that because now you have your own firsthand experience.
Yeah. I would love to have a reading with you, Maureen.
And I think Richard would too, right?
Absolutely. I feel like you've given me a couple more things to add to my toolkit for my morning and evening practices, and I'll be calling on a few others or a few more things to kind of get through some of the things. And I definitely, I struggle at times where I feel like some days I'm in the darkness and other days I'm floating on a cloud, and I get down on myself when I have those dark days. And I know that there's, you can't have a lotus without some mud every once in a while. And sometimes you just have to sit in it, but I'm always striving to have more peaks than valleys. So any help I can get, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, one of the sayings in the book, the Flower of Life book, Beyond the Flower of Life, is Archangel Michael told me that you only need a homeopathic dose of darkness in this 3D world. And that was a huge aha. Whoa, that means we can flood the world with light. And we need a little tiny bit of tough times to get us to hold that space. So, and I'm so grateful you guys were still here, working on your work while you're waiting on me. Thank you so much.
Have a great night. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Peace and love.
Have a good night.
Peace.